died. The energy levels were critical, dropping steadily down to 5%. Only 5% remained, a dangerously low margin by any standard. The warning flickered again, 5%. Time was running out, with the power holding at 5%. 5%. The situation was becoming truly dire now. The display continued to flash that same haunting number, 5%. They were down to the final 5% of their resources. 5%. It was barely enough to keep the systems breathing. The indicator remained stuck at a precarious 5%. Every second counted as the gauge stayed at 5%. 5%, a thin line between survival and total collapse. The countdown of fate seemed to pause at 5%. And there it stayed, a final, desperate 5%. 5%. The number remained unchanged, a haunting reminder of their limits. 5%. It was a thin thread holding their entire world together. Still at 5%, the tension in the air was thick enough to touch. 5%. It was the only thing standing between them and the void. The display flickered, stubbornly clinging to that final 5%. 5%, a desperate margin for a desperate situation. We see the gauges holding steady, if you can call 5% steady. 5%. Every heartbeat felt like it was borrowed from that small number. And there it stayed, 5%, as if time itself had decided to wait. Against all odds, he had successfully rejoined the group. The Buddha says that the fire of nirvana purifies all things. It is meant to burn away every sin and every trace of guilt. Finally, it seemed to be over. There was success, and more importantly, there was salvation. In just a few short days, he had transformed from an ordinary level 2 human. He had jumped to a tier 2 Fanzu practitioner. He had actually done it, much to our surprise. Suddenly, alarms blared everywhere. The state of the beasts had become abnormal. Every unit was ordered to be on high alert as the situation shifted once again. He cursed under his breath, wondering how these killers hadn't been turned to ash. How could they still launch an attack? It seemed the whole world had gone mad. To be honest, they looked less like beasts and more like demons straight from hell. "Where is the commander?" they cried out, realizing that things simply couldn't continue this way. They scrambled to contact the beast resources, but the captain was nowhere to be found. Finally, a voice rang out, ordering everyone to follow him and face the storm together. "For Yangcheng," they shouted, a rallying cry for the city they were sworn to protect. We see the system detect the host's lack of mercy, triggering a desire to suppress all demonic spirits. His synchronization with Fahai increased by 10%, unlocking the powerful golden body form. With an endless, unyielding wrath, he declared that every sin must be purged from this world. As his Fahai synchronization reached 50%, he unlocked the ability to transcend lost souls. When asked if he was alright, he simply replied that it was of no consequence. The divine stone had been drained, and he merely needed a moment to recover his strength. "You really are full of surprises," his companion remarked, regretting not recruiting such a monster sooner. Suddenly, the captain received a transmission through the headquarters' official communication channel. "This is the Eastern Defense Zone," a voice announced. "I am Niejuin. Changzhou Prefecture was under attack by dark forces, suspected to be Tier 3 Fanzu beasts." A sharp command echoed through the air, ordering the mysterious figure to halt immediately. "Are you human or a beast?" they demanded. "Show us your true face." He was asked his business in Changzhou, but his only response was a cold warning of death. The power radiating from him was overwhelming, far beyond anything they had ever encountered. Perhaps, in this chaotic world, there was simply too much for one man to handle. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving the stunned guards behind. We see them directing the movement, calling out for adjustments to the upper right and left corners. A sense of solitary pride lingers in the air as the focus shifts toward the left. It was a moment of deep reflection, a feeling that something fundamental was changing. The tension was palpable, as if the very atmosphere was waiting for a spark. Chiu stood there, his presence a silent anchor amidst the growing uncertainty. He demanded to know the current situation, his voice cutting through the chaos of the moment. The city had been held, the gap in the eastern defense zone was plugged, and the Shou army had finally retreated. While the citizens remained safe and sound, the soldiers had unfortunately suffered heavy casualties. Several captains had fallen in the line of duty, including Captain Su Chu and Captain Luo Hong. They were still being treated, but we learned the grim news that even Commander Wu had sacrificed his life. It seemed impossible, but a Tier 3 humanoid beast had managed to break into the city lord's manor. Commander Wu had fought to hold back the beast, dying in battle right then and there. With much of the manor's mist-shrouded treasures stolen, the remaining commanders gathered in the briefing room. They were discussing the follow-up work when he was asked where he was going, which, to be honest, was obvious. He had only one destination in mind, the conference room. With Commander Wu gone, he declared he would temporarily take over the Eastern Command for this meeting. He asked if anyone had any objections, though Captain Ye certainly had both the seniority and the strength. Everyone agreed he was qualified, especially since the losses from this battle were so devastatingly high. Only the eastern sector fared slightly better, yet the remaining combat-ready Fanzu warriors were less than 40%. And so, the heavy question remained, should they continue to hold Yangcheng at all costs? It wasn't just the show army. The presence of 3 Tier 3 beasts made the situation feel utterly hopeless. One commander suggested they immediately initiate the highest level evacuation protocols. The idea was to abandon Yancheng to save what remained of their forces, as the city was now defenseless. If the show army returned, they knew they wouldn't stand a chance of holding the line again. Nonsense, another barked, pointing out that behind Yancheng lay the vulnerable heart of the Central Plains. If they retreated now, tens of millions of their fellow citizens would be left to a brutal slaughter. But staying meant total annihilation, and to be honest, none of them actually wanted to run away. The western sector was nearly wiped out, leaving them with nothing to stop the next wave of invaders. They argued that this retreat was for the safety of the residents, a heavy burden for any commander. Just then, we see Captain Li Xiang from the Eastern District requesting an audience, and he was told to enter. They asked why he wasn't resting in the hospital, noting that his recent combat achievements were truly remarkable. They assured him his contributions wouldn't be forgotten once the city lord finally returned. They promised to request a formal reward for him, but Li Xiang quickly told them they had misunderstood. He hadn't come for personal glory. He simply wanted to see the fallen for himself. He asked to pay his respects to the sacrificed captains and the body of Commander Wu. Before him lay the captains who had perished during this latest show tide. These were the men who had held the first line of defense with everything they had. They had chosen to die rather than take a single step back from their duty. Li Xiang was asked what he was really up to, as if there might be something wrong with the bodies. The bodies were fine, he noted, but he felt the dead shouldn't be left in such quiet obscurity. Their achievements and their glory, he believed, shouldn't simply be buried along with these cold, broken horns. They deserved more than to be forgotten in a mass grave. We see him beginning a ritual of transcendence, a legend among our soul farriers, or so the stories go. Our soul farriers possess a halo that can be copied, sending that light forward to be passed down through generations. The onlookers wondered if all of this could truly be real, stammering as they looked toward their commander. Deep down, they couldn't help but ask, was it really him? One soldier cursed at his fallen friend, shouting that the beast tide was supposed to be over. They were meant to drink together, and he demanded to know why his comrade had dared to leave first. He turned to young Xiao's son, telling him to listen closely to his next words. He asked him to bring a message to his father, saying he was deeply sorry. He felt he had failed to protect him, and if things had been different, perhaps they wouldn't be here. In the end, he could only entrust the rest to those who remained. Helping others find peace aligned perfectly with the ancient beliefs of the Sea of Dharma. His synchronization increased by 10%, and Su Jiwei spoke up, thanking Li Xiang on behalf of all the fallen brothers. After expressing his gratitude, he had one final, solemn request to make. Li Xiang told Su Jiwei not to be so formal, as he felt this was simply his duty. But Su Jiwei insisted, asking Captain Li Xiang to honor the 30,000 soldiers who had sacrificed themselves for Yangqing. He asked him to guide them one last time on their final journey. Meanwhile, someone tried to comfort Xiao Lian, telling her not to worry so much about the small child. They assured her that good people are watched over by heaven, and surely, everything would be all right. She admitted her heart was racing, feeling that with something this massive happening, it was strange he hadn't sent any word, and she couldn't help but fear the worst. Her companion told her not to speak of such misfortune, urging her to look ahead instead. The city defense force had invited a master of great virtue to honor all the fallen soldiers, performing a grand ritual to guide them through the final stage of their journey. We see the crowds gathering to bid the heroes farewell, a sight meant to calm her wandering mind. The people marveled at the master, noting that with such a grand presence, he seemed like a living Buddha. Suddenly, someone nudged Xiao Lian, telling her to take a closer look at the master leading the rite. They remarked on how much he resembled her Li Xiang, and to be honest, the likeness was striking. She wondered how it could possibly be him, yet if it wasn't her son, how could two people look so identical? It was a mystery that left her completely bewildered. The question echoed in her mind, a repetitive loop of disbelief as she stared at the figure. She simply couldn't reconcile the image of her son with this powerful, transcendent master. Li Xiang spoke, his voice steady as he noted that while the dead are gone, the living must carry on. He offered a final blessing, wishing them all a peaceful journey into the beyond. Meanwhile, a newcomer told the city lord there was no need for such deep anxiety over a mere earth-level beast tide. He claimed that even if he had arrived late and Yangqing had fallen, it wouldn't have mattered much. He boasted that with a mere flick of his fingers, he could have wiped those creatures out entirely. The city lord replied that while he had full confidence in the inspection office's power, his primary concern, naturally, had always been the safety of his citizens. A frantic voice interrupted them, calling out to both the city lord and the inspector. "Quickly, you both must look outside," the messenger urged, his voice trembling. "We see the spirits of the fallen soldiers rising, and in a moment like this." The inspector was shocked that Yangqing had found a master to perform such a rite, especially since their authorization had expired. City Lord Su noted that Yangqing was merely a fourth-tier, low-ranking city. After all, their defenses were notoriously weak. Logically, they shouldn't have been able to withstand even the lowest Earth-level beast tide. It should have been impossible to hold them back, which led Su to look toward Inspector Yi with a theory. He wondered if it was possible that another passing member of the inspection office had simply stepped in to resolve the crisis on a whim. Inspector Yi told City Lord Su he was overthinking it, as every action within the inspection system is strictly recorded. For a mere Earth-level tide in a low-tier city, it was highly unlikely a colleague would go out of their way. Even if someone were just passing through, they wouldn't forget to report it to headquarters, which, naturally, left a glaring question. If it wasn't the office, then who was it? And so, the mystery deepened. Yi remarked that this was the most interesting part. If there was no outside help, then the city must have solved the crisis entirely on its own. He turned to City Lord Su with a knowing look. It seemed that within this tiny, low-ranking city of his, there was a truly extraordinary individual hiding in plain sight. Meanwhile, Xiao Lian was calling out for her son, desperately asking, "Xiao Xiang, where are you?" The news reports claimed the eastern wall had been breached and monsters were everywhere. She pleaded for him not to go outside and to find somewhere safe to hide, her heart filled with a mother's dread. The city had been held, yet her only thought was for her son, wondering where on earth he could be. She had heard that a master within the city was performing rites for the fallen soldiers. That master looked so much like him that she found herself pleading, hoping against hope it was actually him. She begged him to just send a message, as the chaos of the recent battle had left her in agony. Lin Xiang realized he hadn't checked his phone during the fight, and his mother was likely worried sick. He decided it was finally time to come clean with her, but he was suddenly interrupted by a voice. My son, she cried out the moment she spotted him. She rushed toward him, demanding to know where he had been hiding this entire time. She was nearly dead with worry, especially since he hadn't picked up a single one of her calls. With no replies to her messages, she feared the worst had happened to him during the breach. He tried to reassure her that he was fine and began to explain what he had actually been doing. But before he could finish, a neighbor noted that Lin Xiang had finally returned home. Lin Xiang looked at Auntie Deng and the others, confused by the sudden gathering at his door. They scolded him for being so thoughtless and not sending word sooner to his poor mother. One of them sighed with relief, saying that as long as the boy was back safe, nothing else mattered. It was a sentiment they all shared, repeating that his safe return was a blessing in such dark times. Auntie Deng then noticed his attire and asked if he, too, had joined the city defense force. She told him he needed to work hard and try to keep up with the example set by his brother Kuan. She warned him not to remain a common grunt forever, boasting that Kuan had already achieved great things. Kuan was now a captain in the Shenzhen Defense Force, and in this world, that was exactly where a man belonged. She went on about protecting the country, unlike some people who are already grown adults. In her eyes, hiding in the rear like a coward was no different from being a complete waste of resources. Lin Xiang's mother tried to intervene, gently suggesting that everyone has their own role to play. But Auntie Wang insisted that a man must protect his family, noting that Kuan had earned his captaincy. She claimed he had fought through blood and fire on the front lines to get there, unlike young Lin. Then, she turned the conversation toward the rumor that Lin's mother was about to be promoted to director. Lin's mother admitted it was true, though the final decision hadn't been officially settled yet. At that moment, Kuan spoke up, declaring that a director's position should go to someone truly useful. He argued that his own mother had spent half her life working at the unit and had earned her stripes. In his biased opinion, it was only right that his mother should take that position instead. He then looked directly at Lin's mother, asking her what she thought of his bold suggestion. Auntie Deng was outraged, demanding to know what Kuan meant by saying his mother was more suitable. She pointed out that Xiulian had worked hard for this promotion, and there was no reason to give it up. Kuan's expression darkened as he asked Auntie Deng if she realized exactly who she was talking to. He reminded her that he was a captain now, and such offense would not be taken lightly. The tension rose as Auntie Deng stood her ground, asking Kuan what he was really trying to achieve. Kuan sneered at Lin Xiang, asking him what he thought he was, just a common soldier, after all. He told Lin that if it weren't for their family's long history, Lin wouldn't even be worthy of meeting him. The message was perfectly clear, and Kuan wasn't interested in being subtle about his demands anymore. He told Lin's mother that his own mother wanted that director's seat, and he had the power to take it. Kuan sneered, telling Lin Xiang that speaking to him calmly was already a massive favor, whether Lin believed it or not. He threatened that with a single word, he could ensure Li Lian would lose her current job entirely. Lin Xiang replied calmly, noting that while protecting the country deserved respect, there were lines that shouldn't be crossed. He questioned the morality of using power for personal gain and using honors earned on the battlefield as a weapon. To Lin, using such status as capital to oppress ordinary civilians was certainly not what a soldier should be doing. Kuan laughed, asking what a kid like him could possibly know about those who risked their lives on the front lines. In his mind, the whole point of fighting was to gain power and status for themselves and their families. He argued that without the promise of a better life, no one would risk death, and he decided to put that power to the test. He demanded Lin's mother give up her position, asking if Lin dared to refuse, to which Lin simply asked what would happen if he didn't. Kuan's patience finally snapped, calling Lin an ungrateful brat who didn't know what was good for him. It seemed that, in Kuen's eyes, the only way to handle the situation was to teach the young man a painful lesson. Suddenly, the air shifted as Lin sensed an aura, realizing that Kuen was also an awakened, or a transcendent, as they are known. Lin was unimpressed, noting that a mere rank 3 transcendent had somehow managed to claw his way up to a captaincy. Looking at the man before him, Lin couldn't help but wonder exactly how someone like Kuen had earned such a rank. He asked Kuen which defense zone he belonged to, specifically mentioning the Tongbu defense zone. Just then, a voice broke through. It was Li Xiao, who seemed shocked to find Lin Xiang there of all places. The confusion was evident as Li Xiao repeated the question, wondering how the young man had ended up in this specific spot. Li Xiao quickly shifted gears, explaining that they had actually been looking for Lin Xiang everywhere. He revealed that the city lord had returned and specifically asked to see Lin, a development that changed everything. Lin Xiang replied that he was at home dealing with a small matter, promising to head over as soon as he finished. Li Xiao insisted on picking him up immediately, noting that finding Lin Xiang was exactly what he had been tasked to do. Lin Xiang agreed, adding that since Commander Nia would be there soon, he intended to ask a few pointed questions. Specifically, he wanted to know exactly how someone like Kuen had managed to become a captain in the first place. Kuen burst out laughing at the mention of the commander, finding the idea of Lin Xiang knowing such a man utterly ridiculous. He sneered at Li Xiao, asking him who he thought he was to be throwing around such important names. The idea that they could simply pick up the phone and call Commander Nia was, in Kuen's eyes, a complete fantasy. He mocked them, asking if they truly believed a great man like Nia was someone they could just see on a whim. Meanwhile, Lin's mother was in a state of shock, struggling to understand how her son had suddenly become a transcendent. And besides, Wang Kuen was the captain after all. She worried that hitting him would bring disaster, but Lin gently told her to stay calm and not to worry. He assured her that everything would be fine, and to be honest, he sounded far more certain than any ordinary young man should. When the commander finally arrived, he looked at Kuen and asked if this was truly how a captain of the Eastern Defense Zone behaved. He listed the grievances, abusing power, bullying the weak, and turning his strength against his own fellow citizens. Lin Xiang looked directly at Commander Nia and asked if this was the standard for all the soldiers under his command. It was a bold question, essentially asking if the entire Eastern Defense Zone was filled with men like Kuen. Commander Nia turned his gaze toward Wang Kuen, identifying him as the newly appointed substitute captain of the 7th team. He demanded to know if the accusations were true, while a panicked Kuen begged the commander not to listen to such nonsense. Kuen desperately claimed that the commander shouldn't believe a complete outsider, but Nia cut him off, stating that Lin Xiang was no stranger. He revealed that Lin was the hero of the Northern Defense, the one man who had single-handedly turned the tide of battle. It was Lin Xiang who had honored the souls of 30,000 fallen soldiers, allowing them to finally find peace. He had twice crushed the Earth-level beast tides, standing as the ultimate shield and spear of the defense. The commander asked Kuen directly if a man of such caliber was not worthy of his absolute trust. Kuen was frozen in shock, realizing this was the legendary Northern commander who had repelled the sea of monsters. Furthermore, the commander noted that the minimum standard for a city defense captain was quite strict. It required a rank 1, level 5 status, yet Kuen was barely a level 3, a discrepancy that was hard to ignore. He demanded to know how Kuen had secured the position, prompting the captain to finally break and admit his fault. Terrified, Kuen stammered that he would never dare to hold the position again, begging for mercy. He pleaded for a second chance, but the commander simply ordered his men to take him away and make him talk. He was determined to find out exactly how many parasites like Kuen were hiding within the great tree of the Eastern Defense Zone. It was time for a thorough cleaning, and the soldiers moved in immediately to carry out the order. Kuen's mother screamed in protest, begging them not to take her son away before turning her sights on Lin Xiang. She wailed that she had been blind and foolish, admitting she had lost her mind to greed and arrogance. She implored Lin Xiang to say just one word to save her son, hoping his influence could stop the arrest. She cried out that Kuen was still so young, but the onlookers only spat in disgust at her sudden change of heart. They reminded her of how she had looked while forcing Xiulian to give up her job, and frankly, no one felt sorry for her now. Meanwhile, Lin's mother was still reeling, hearing everyone call her son a legendary commander. We see her confusion as she asked how he could have possibly repelled 2 beast tides on his own. Lin Xiang gave her a reassuring look, telling her simply that he was fine and there was no need to worry. He promised to explain everything to her once he returned, as he had business to attend to first. It turned out that the old fox Su Renqing was originally supposed to be the one to pick him up. The commander explained that since the call had reached him directly, he decided to make the trip in person. He admitted he never expected to find such a mess waiting for him here. It was clear that some of these so-called assistants were long overdue for a thorough cleaning. Lin Xiang, however, seemed more curious about why City Lord Nia wanted to see him at all. The commander laughed, asking if Lin had fought so many beasts outside the walls that he'd lost his wits. After all, when a man saves an entire city single-handedly, the city lord usually has a few things to say. Naturally, the agenda included awarding him medals and officially recording his great achievements. Promotions and rewards were the order of the day. What else could he possibly expect? But a word of caution followed. The inspector who arrived with the city lord was someone to watch out for. This man had been asking about Lin Xiang repeatedly, and he certainly didn't seem like the friendly type. The mention of the inspection office gave Lin Xiang pause, as their reputation preceded them. We know that these inspectors are drawn from the major bases across the land. They are the elite, sent down from the legendary central main city to maintain order. Most of them hail from ancient, powerful families with lineages that stretch back for generations. They enjoy a level of freedom ordinary people can't imagine, and their strength is truly unfathomable. Lin Xiang wondered why such a high-ranking figure would take any interest in him at all. Soon, the introductions began as the city lord and Inspector Yi were brought forward. The commander proudly introduced Lin Xiang as the absolute pride of the Northern Defense Zone. The city lord greeted him warmly, noting that he had heard of Lin Xiang's great fame for a long time. He thanked him on behalf of Yang City's million citizens, acknowledging that the city survived solely because of his efforts. Lin Xiang replied modestly, suggesting that the city lord was perhaps giving him far too much credit. The city lord then turned to the man beside him, introducing the inspector whose power was truly unfathomable. Deep down, Lin Xiang sensed that this man's strength likely far exceeded that of a typical second-rank clan head. The city lord addressed the room, stating he had gathered the commanders and Captain Lin Xiang for a reason. It was a matter of extreme urgency, one that concerned the very survival of Yang City itself. He decided to skip the pleasantries and asked Inspector Yi to explain the situation to everyone. Inspector Yi stepped forward, stating clearly that he had summoned them all for one specific purpose. According to the highest level of intelligence analysis, the situation was far worse than they realized. The recent beast tides that erupted simultaneously across the 4 districts of Yang City were no coincidence. We see that every single one of these outbreaks pointed back to the exact same source. The culprit was an ancestral beast, a creature of at least the 3rd rank. Based on the hard data and his own extensive experience, the inspector was certain of his conclusion. Both of the recent tides had been deliberately orchestrated by this single 3rd-rank beast. No one could say for sure when it would decide to launch the next wave of destruction. If they waited for the next attack, Yang City would undoubtedly fall, a grim prospect, to be sure. The only viable solution remaining was to launch a preemptive strike against the creature. He proposed organizing an elite squad immediately to venture deep into the danger zone. Their mission would be to locate the beast's lair and hunt it down before it could strike again. One of the commanders hesitated, noting that a 3rd-rank beast's power was far beyond their imagination. Furthermore, the primeval forest was full of hidden perils, making such a mission an incredibly risky gamble. The commander argued that in such a situation, even the slightest mistake could be fatal. There was a very real possibility that Yang City's top awakened could be completely wiped out. For the city, the risks simply outweighed the reward, but Inspector Yi told them not to panic. He was well aware of the danger, which is why he intended to lead the mission personally. He revealed his true standing then. He himself was a 3rd-rank awakened. Lin Xiang realized his suspicions were correct. The inspector's power was indeed at the 3rd rank. He wondered why such a man was interested in him, unsure if this attention was a blessing or a curse. The inspector then noted that Yang City possessed a unique asset of its own. He was referring, of course, to the young hero who had single-handedly crushed a beast tide. With over 30,000 spirits at his command, the inspector felt Lin Xiang was essential. He assumed the young captain wouldn't refuse, and to be honest, he didn't give him much choice. Lin Xiang agreed to go, but he had one specific condition for the inspector. He insisted on being the one to lead the charge during this operation. Inspector Yi laughed, praising the young man for having the courage of a true hero. Since Lin Xiang had volunteered, the matter was settled, and they were ordered to depart immediately. With Lin Xiang serving as the vanguard, they prepared to head deep into the primeval forest. His companion asked if he had lost his mind, insisting this was no time to play the hero. She feared Yi Chen's motives were unclear and that Lin Xiang was being far too impulsive. He reassured her that he knew what he was doing and that they could no longer remain passive. In his mind, taking the initiative was the only defense they had left. The commander turned to the city lord, asking how he could simply stand by while Yi Chen pushed Lin Xiang into the lion's den. They reminded him that they had already reported on Lin Xiang's progress. He wasn't just a hero, he was the very future of Yang City. In their eyes, they simply couldn't allow him to go out there and throw his life away for nothing. The city lord sighed, asking if they truly believed he wanted to let the young man take such a massive risk. He reminded them that Yi Chen was an inspector sent directly from the central main city. He represented the highest authority in the land, and the city lord, to be honest, had no way to defy his direct orders. Still, he suggested that an inspector must have his own reasons for acting the way he did. Perhaps he truly intended to rely on Lin Xiang's unique abilities, though the risk remained staggeringly high. Lin Xiang's talents were indeed rare. He could refine powerful elixirs and suppress demonic spirits with equal ease. His value was far greater than that of a mere vanguard meant to charge into traps, and they all knew it. If given enough time, his potential would be limitless, making the decision to send him into danger now feel like a gamble. Should he fall in battle, the loss to the city would be absolutely immeasurable. The city lord admitted that he understood these concerns all too well. However, he viewed this not just as a mortal danger, but as a rare opportunity for the young man. The others were skeptical, wondering what kind of opportunity could possibly be worth such a threat. He explained that while the first and second ranks of the mortal realm rely on talent and luck, crossing from the second rank into the third is a massive chasm that few ever bridge. It requires a staggering amount of resources, and Yang City, quite frankly, was simply too small to provide them. It was true that the resources needed for the third rank were vast, perhaps too much for their small territory to handle. And yet, they wondered if Yang City's hidden foundations might still be enough to nurture at least one third-rank expert. The city lord noted that while focusing the entire city's strength could work, they had to consider what would happen after the third rank. He asked them quite pointedly if they truly believed Lin Xiang's journey would simply stop there. We returned to Lin Xiang's home, where his mother realized that everything the commander had said was actually true. She looked at him, asking if he was indeed the high monk who had purified the souls of tens of thousands of fallen soldiers. It was a heavy revelation, confirming that the figure they saw in the square just a few days ago was her own son. Lin Xiang apologized, explaining that he hadn't intended to keep her in the dark on purpose. Deep down, he had only been afraid that she would worry or try to stop him from taking such a path. His mother sighed, calling him a silly boy and reminding him of his father's own legacy. His father had been a squad leader under Cheng Fongwan, and he had always viewed the protection of Yang City as a sacred duty. He had valued that duty more than his own life, and now that his son was carrying on that wish, she couldn't possibly object. She confessed that when she saw the monk's profile in the square that day, she already suspected it was him. To be honest, a mother always knows her own child, even under the robes of a high priest. Despite her fear, she felt a profound sense of pride swelling in her heart. She realized then that her son had truly become a great hero, just like his father before him. Lin Xiang reassured her, promising that he would take care of himself and that everything would be fine. A little later, a soldier arrived to report that the vehicle was ready and it was time to depart according to the schedule. Lin Xiang said his goodbyes, urging his mother to stay safe while he was away on this dangerous mission. The squad leader lamented that he wasn't qualified to join this particular task and could only escort Lin Xiang this far. He wished him a safe journey, knowing full well the weight of the burden the young man was carrying. And with a final, solemn salute, they watched as the future of the city prepared to head into the unknown. For 12 years, the original trio lived as a tribe, but the vast majority of them remained stuck as first-rank fighters. As for Lin Xiang, they posed no real danger to him yet. The only thing he truly needed to worry about was a third-rank opponent. And that was precisely the problem. A third-rank fighter had just entered the fray. He had barely arrived when he realized he was already being watched by eyes in the shadows. They were courting death, really, and this latest decision of theirs had already sealed their fate. Every offer had been rejected, and by now, the situation had completely deteriorated. They were now the targets, simply because young Master Ding refused to recognize the danger he was in. The order was given to attack. Using his super-weak King Soul to slay the demons, he pushed the C-system poison level up to 60%. This achievement finally unlocked the Vajra little demon insects, a formidable new power. The rain had stopped for some time, and Li Xiang assumed the others had already moved far ahead. Yi Xuechang urged the group to hurry up and catch up before they lost the trail entirely. And so, they began to move out, one after another. They pressed forward through the difficult terrain, keeping a steady pace. The group continued their march, deeper into the heart of the territory. Step by step, they followed the path laid out before them. The journey was long, but they showed no signs of slowing down. They kept moving, driven by a sense of urgency. Commissioner Yi looked troubled as he admitted he hadn't brought any medicine to treat blood vein toxins. He looked at the injury, realizing with a heavy heart that the man's arm was likely beyond saving. We see that while ordinary toxic blood is one thing, this blood vein mark comes from a first-rank beast. Its entire body is saturated with poison, which will inevitably spread through the veins and meridians to the whole body. He warned everyone to be careful, as things had just become significantly more complicated. In that moment of despair, the man felt certain that his death was imminent. There was miasma in the air, and he urged them to take their detoxification pills and leave the area immediately. He stepped forward, deciding that he would be the one to cut a path through the danger. This was a beast tide, a massive swarm of blood-vein beasts, and he wondered if this was the end. He asked himself if they were all destined to die here, but he quickly told the group not to lose heart. They steeled themselves, making every necessary preparation for the battle of their lives. And then, something strange happened. The beast tide was passing them by without launching an attack. The beasts were heading toward the center, likely toward Captain Li Xiang's position, and he ordered everyone to move. His plan was to blend into the tide and disperse, regrouping at the center, which the others quickly accepted. They prepared to follow the swarm, and one by one, the team members signaled their agreement. The consensus was reached, and they readied themselves to move into the chaos. He shouted for the ancient threats to disperse, trying to clear a path through the overwhelming numbers. To be honest, the place felt increasingly eerie, as those creatures seemed to have no physical form. Yet, they were still capable of landing physical blows, leaving him to wonder exactly what they were facing. The alarm was raised as they spotted the enemy squad approaching from the distance. The warning echoed through the ranks. The enemy squad was closing in on their position from multiple sides. Enemy forces were everywhere now, and the group realized they were completely surrounded. The shouts echoed through the air. The enemy squad was here, and they were closing in fast. "Captain Lee, we finally found you," they called out, noting how incredibly dangerous the area had become. They reported that the three-sword demon king had been slain by Yi Sun, urging everyone to leave immediately. But something was wrong, and the group watched in confusion, wondering what Captain Lee was actually doing. He saw right through them, realizing that this entire display was nothing more than a calculated act. The figure asked how he had seen through the disguise, but Lee had a much more pressing question. To be honest, he was far more curious about what kind of creature was actually standing before him. A chilling voice declared that those who trespassed in this place would face a grim fate. And here we see a new shadow looming over the battlefield, a presence that changed everything. It was the Black Eagle, a sight that made the air itself feel heavy with dread. Suddenly, the beast came to a halt, leaving the group to wonder why these killers had stopped their assault. We noticed that the eerie blue glow in the beast's eyes had vanished, replaced by something far more unsettling. It was true, the aggression was gone, but their new gaze felt like something else entirely. It was as if they were showing reverence, looking at something they intended to worship. The group turned to Officer Yi, asking for his perspective on this bizarre turn of events. He spotted Captain Lee in the distance, realizing he hadn't been wrong about the young man's potential. Despite only being a second-tier squad, the power they were displaying could rival that of the third tier. Without a second thought, he ordered the team to move out and provide support for Li Jia. But the numbers were overwhelming, and he feared that if the battle continued like this, they would all perish. He worried they would exhaust their strength and die here, especially with that beast appearing where it shouldn't be. He could hardly believe his eyes as he stared at the beast. This creature was unlike anything he had ever seen. The sheer scale of the monster seemed to defy logic, its presence filling the air with an overwhelming sense of dread. Every movement the beast made sent tremors through the ground, a constant reminder of the raw power it possessed. It was a nightmare made flesh, a relentless force of nature that seemed intent on crushing everything in its path. He wondered what kind of hellish thing this actually was, realizing that staying on the defensive was no longer an option. They had to break through its perimeter and find a way to kill it, or they wouldn't survive the night. Suddenly, a voice called out to Lin Xiang, promising that reinforcements had finally arrived to lend a hand. Lin Xiang assured them he was fine, noting that their timing, for once, was actually quite perfect. He asked Commander Yi what he knew about the beast, only to learn it wasn't a beast at all, but an ancestral plant. In the myriad demon path, we know this horror as the 100-root demon tree, a creature born of dozens of entities. It is a symbiotic nightmare of hundreds of tree demons, using their branches and roots to ensnare anything that breathes. They feast on the flesh of the living for nutrients. But the most terrifying part is what happens to those who die here. We see that the bodies and spirits of these fallen beasts are not allowed to rest. Their very essence is harvested. Their souls are imprisoned forever, denied any chance of rebirth, and forced to serve as the tree's most loyal puppets. The realization hit them hard. How could they possibly win if every enemy they killed simply fell under the tree's control? It seemed completely absurd, but Yi explained that these tree demons all share a single, vital core called a demon elixir. As long as that core remains intact, they can use the lake's nutrients to regenerate endlessly. However, the reverse is also true. Destroying the core would kill the entire organism. So he and Lin Xiang prepared to strike, while the others held the line. The plan was simple. The squad would hold back the infinite puppets to buy the two of them enough time to succeed. Lin Xiang spotted the core of the 100-root demon tree and urged the team to block the path while he moved in for the kill. With a single word, they moved out, charging toward the heart of the nightmare. The beasts of the three realms were certainly troublesome, but in his eyes, that was all they were. He struck with such precision that it seemed, for a moment, as if the battle had already ended. But then, something shifted, a sight so unexpected it left them questioning their own eyes. We see the figure of Yi Kunshu appearing through the chaos, though something is terribly wrong. The name echoed through the clearing, a desperate call to a man who was no longer himself. He screamed for them to get away, warning that this version of Kunshu was nothing but a cruel deception. He had been tricked, and knowing they were outmatched, he urged them to flee and seek help from the capital. The tree demon was in the middle of devouring Kunshu, turning him into just another imprisoned soul. If even a warrior like Kunshu had fallen, they began to wonder if any hope truly remained. Suddenly, Lin Xiang broke formation, prompting a panicked cry for him to come back before it was too late. We realized then that Lin Xiang wasn't attacking. He was performing rites to liberate the trapped spirits. By releasing these souls, he was effectively stripping the tree demon of its borrowed strength. The monster roared in agony, cursing the man who was systematically dismantling its power. Lin Xiang called out to Captain Li, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. The captain responded instantly, ready to follow whatever lead Lin Xiang provided. It was a moment of absolute clarity amidst the madness of the forest. From the depths of wicked thoughts, a spark of wisdom and a pure heart began to emerge. He bestowed a new name upon the spirit, Cultivation, marking a transformation from darkness to light. The spirit accepted the name with deep gratitude, finally finding a purpose beyond the tree's control. Captain Li looked around in confusion, asking the others what exactly was happening. With the tree demon's evil spirit purged, it was time to rescue Yi Kunchu and destroy the pill. He finally found it, whispering that all things must eventually return to one. He declared that all falsehood and evil must be unified and extinguished. We transition to a much calmer scene where a man moves his rook, capturing a horse in a game of chess. The general smiled as his opponent arrived, acknowledging his presence at the board. But then, the old man panicked, claiming he'd made a mistake and insisting they take the move back. His opponent sighed, noting how many times he'd already backtracked. Age, it seems, has its privileges. The old man waved it off, asking why he was being so petty with a bag of old bones like himself. His friend could only stutter in disbelief at the sheer audacity of the man's shamelessness. He simply couldn't believe the character of the person sitting across from him. A servant interrupted, informing old Jun that a man named Su Bing had arrived with urgent business. Old Jun pondered the name Su Bing for a moment before giving the order to let him in. Su Bing entered and offered his greetings, addressing the man as Lord Wang. The junior, Su Bing, bowed deeply before the two immortals sitting at the table. Old Jun recognized him kindly, asking little Su Bing if he had run into some sort of trouble. Su Bing shook his head, explaining that he hadn't come because he was in any personal difficulty. Instead, he revealed that he had traveled all this way for the sake of a true genius. He told them that in Yangcheng, there was a man by the name of Lin Xiang. The mention of the name caused a sudden burst of laughter, comparing the situation to a first-tier Zhang Sanfeng. The man laughed, asking if Su Bing was simply telling them a fairy tale about reaching the second rank in 3 days. Su Bing looked at him earnestly, asking Lord Baojun if he truly didn't believe the news. Baojun scoffed in response, wondering aloud why on earth he should believe something so preposterous. He noted that even the most monstrous geniuses in the capital city didn't possess that kind of capability. It seemed impossible to him that a place like Yangcheng could produce such a peerless hero. Su Bing bowed again, insisting to the seniors that every single word he spoke was the absolute truth. He told Baojun that if he remained skeptical, he was more than welcome to investigate the matter himself. Baojun dismissed it, saying such talk was only worth listening to for amusement, which, to be honest, was a bit harsh. He suggested sending the boy back where he came from, still stuck on the impossibility of the 3-day breakthrough. Turning to his friend, he announced he had other business to attend to and took his leave. Su Bing turned to old Jun, pleading that he wasn't lying, while the old man considered whether it was true or false. Old Jun told him to rest easy, as he would make his own judgment on the matter in due time. But deep down, Su Bing panicked, realizing the old fox was planning to snatch the genius for himself. Meanwhile, the other man sent word that he wouldn't be back tomorrow, having just discovered this 3-day talent. He was determined to snatch the prize right out of the tiger's mouth, no matter the cost. We transitioned to the city gates, where guards demanded to know who the stranger was and why he dared intrude. Su Bing, the city lord of Yangcheng, quickly arrived and ordered everyone to stand down immediately. He offered his formal respects, greeting the esteemed Master Qingqiu with great deference. Qingqiu acknowledged him, noting he'd received old Jun's letter, and asked where the boy named Lin Xiang was. He demanded to be taken to him at once, and Su Bing obliged, leading the way with a polite gesture. We see a new arrival, who notes that Qingqiu didn't even bother to say hello before entering Tongzhou Prefecture territory. He suggests that such a lack of courtesy is a bit hard to justify, even for someone of his standing. The newcomer greets Su Bing warmly, and the city lord quickly bows, recognizing him as the prefecture lord. He remarks that Qingqiu is truly the pride of the Jinmei army, a reputation well-earned. It seems he traveled all the way from the northern border to Yangcheng in record time. In fact, he arrived even faster than the local prefecture lord himself, which is quite a feat. It appears Lord Xiao also received word of the genius and decided to show up uninvited. Qingqiu jokes that he hopes Lord Xiao isn't upset, but Xiao simply laughs the comment off. Xiao points out that when it comes to arriving unannounced, Qingqiu certainly isn't the only one. Su Bing looks on in shock, realizing that the legendary immortal Chang Mei has also arrived. Then there is Zhao Huzi, appearing alongside Lord Xiao to join the growing crowd. These are some of the most famous powerhouses in the land, second only to the 4 great guardian generals. Su Bing had only hoped to find a single reliable backer for Lin Xiang, not a whole army of them. He wonders how on earth they all found out, feeling a bit overwhelmed by the sudden attention. One of the masters grumbles that despite being among the first to know, he still arrived a step too late. He asks the others why they came if they claimed not to believe the rumors, calling one of them a mere drunkard. He demands to know why a man who should be at Mount Yuenshu is bothering to show up here. The man simply replies that he followed the scent of fine wine, a classic excuse, if we're being honest. Another claims he was observing the celestial patterns at night and saw a sign of greatness. He insists that the purple energy from the east indicated that a hero would be found right here. He claims that this child shares a profound and ancient connection with his own Mount Yuenshu. In fact, he insists he has come specifically to guide the boy back to their mountain sect. He turns to another, asking what his excuse is, calling the man a stubborn old Taoist. He mocks him, wondering if he also spent the night watching the stars to find a destined pupil. We see that everyone present knows exactly why they have gathered here, despite the pretenses. Pavilion Master Wu Ji asks why they must continue to state the obvious with such feigned ignorance. He suggests that rather than wasting time bickering amongst themselves, they should finally meet the legendary prodigy everyone is so desperate to claim. Su Bing wonders how their information could be so accurate, but he is determined to keep this talent. Deep down, he is certain that this genius must remain within his own Lonyuan pavilion. He reflects on his own struggle, having risked his life just to reach the rank of a Tier 2 awakened. And yet, the very first boy he recruited has already reached Tier 3, which is a bit humbling, really. He wonders what kind of luck this is, but realizes that if he could gather all 8 boys, he would essentially have 8 Tier 3 enforcers at his beck and call. The realization of that power, Tier 3 power, echoes in his mind over and over again. The prospect of having 8 such powerful fighters is almost too much to imagine. Suddenly, a voice barks that the master is in seclusion and won't see guests, asking who these intruders are. The tone is arrogant, warning that anyone who dares to trespass will be executed on the spot. Su Bing is questioned if he is absolutely sure about the Tier 3 rank, as the person doesn't look like Lin Xiang. Something is wrong. He realizes this is an evil soul evolved from the courtyard and calls Xiao Wan over. He steps forward, intending to check the boy's body for any signs of corruption or lingering evil. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through the tension, ordering Gue Xin to step back immediately. He apologizes to the masters, pleading with them not to take offense at a child's lack of manners. Li Xiang finally appears, and Su Bing wastes no time introducing him to Fu Xiaoquan from Tongzhou. He continues the introductions, pointing out General Qing Qiu of the regular army. Then there is Immortal Mei, Vice President of Capital University and the true person of Mount Yuenshu. Finally, we meet Pavilion Master Zhao Wuji of Lonyuan. Li Xiang greets them, wondering why they have come. He asks what business such esteemed seniors could have with a junior like him. Good boy, one replies. He mentions that rumors of the boy's genius have spread far, and asks if he'd like to join Lonyuan. Wu Ji is mocked for wanting to turn such a talent into a mere dragon tamer. It is quite the insult. The general promises that if the boy joins the army, he will be promoted to captain within 3 years. He would hold the power of life and death in his hands, a tempting offer for any young man. The prospect of wielding military authority and guarding an entire region is laid out before him. However, another voice scoffs, calling the life of a soldier nothing more than the work of a reckless brute. Immortal Mei suggests he come to Capital University instead, promising that within a decade, he will become a high-ranking official, masterfully coordinating strategies from behind the scenes. Li Xiang expresses his deep gratitude for their kindness, but he admits that right now, Yang City has just survived a beast tide and remains in a fragile state of recovery. He asks how he could possibly leave at such a critical time. Nonsense, comes the sharp reply. Li Xiang is asked if he even realizes what he is saying or the magnitude of the opportunity he is dismissing. He is asked what he could possibly achieve by staying, and if he realizes he is simply gambling with his own future. Li Xiang looks at City Lord Su and calmly insists that this is no joke. He is perfectly serious. The seniors are impressed, noting that the boy possesses both deep loyalty and remarkable courage. Fu Xiaoquan declares it an absolute honor for Tongzhou to have produced a talent of such high caliber. Suddenly, a prestigious token is revealed. It is the Bingji City Decree, a symbol of significant elevation. We learn that because Yang City successfully repelled the beast tide, it has performed a great service to the state. As a result, the city has earned the right to be officially promoted to the status of a Bingji City. Furthermore, a Sky Eagle-grade rune main cannon will be allocated to Yang City to bolster its defenses. He is told not to worry about the city's safety anymore, and Li Xiang offers his sincere thanks for such grace. With his concerns for home finally resolved, the masters urge him to make his choice without further delay. They warn him not to waste the kindness and sincere intentions these esteemed seniors have shown him. Fu Xiaoquan asks if the young man would be willing to come to the Tongzhou mansion and serve as an inspector. Another master steps forward, deciding that words are no longer enough to win the boy over. He promises that if Li Xiang is willing to join Mount Yuenshu, the rewards will be beyond his imagination. He presents the Fan Tian wings, an immortal artifact, and offers it to him as a personal gift. The crowd gasps, as this is a genuine immortal artifact, rumored to possess the power to move mountains and fill seas. Such treasures are incredibly rare in this world, and Li Xiang realizes that by simply saying yes, it could be his. The others are stunned, cursing the drunkard for being willing to part with an actual immortal artifact. It seems he is truly going all in, and we all know just how irresistible the temptation of such an item is. For the other recruiters, it feels as though the game is over. How could anyone possibly top an offer like that? The master asks once more if the young lad will join Mount Yuanxiu, but Li Xiang simply thanks him for his kind intentions. However, he remains firm, stating that he truly has no intention of leaving Yang City at this time. His spirit is as steady as a mountain, and we see his synchronization reaching a perfect 100%. It appears he is now ready to proceed with his third major evolution. The other recruiters find the situation hilarious, mocking the master for trying to bribe the boy with an immortal artifact. In the end, the boy didn't even give the treasure a second glance, which is quite embarrassing, really. One of them laughs, telling the drunkard that he'll be making fun of this failure for at least a year. He adds that he's glad he didn't try to lead with the treasure himself, or he would be the one feeling awkward now. It seems that for all these esteemed masters, today's trip has turned out to be a complete waste of time. They decide that since the young man is unwilling to leave, they should stop bothering him and take their leave. As they prepare to depart, the atmosphere shifts suddenly as they all pay their respects to the Divine General of the North. This man is one of the 4 great Divine Generals of the Imperial Court, a figure of immense power. These generals are all 5th-rank masters who stand as the ultimate guardians of the nation's vast territories. And here we see him in the flesh, the legendary Divine General of the North himself. He looks at the young man and asks if he would be willing to join the Northern Army. The onlookers are in awe, whispering to Li Xiang that this is a truly monumental figure standing before him. They emphasize his status again, making sure the boy understands exactly who is making this offer. It is a rare sight indeed to see the Divine General of the North personally recruiting a young talent. He repeats his invitation, asking once more if the boy is ready to serve in the Northern Army. City Lord Su sighs, telling Li Xiang that while refusing the others was one thing, this is an entirely different level. He asks if Li Xiang truly intends to refuse an invitation even from the Divine General of the North himself. This is, after all, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that most would kill for. Deep down, the boy worries that joining the city defense force has already caused his mother enough anxiety. If he were to join the Northern Army, he fears he would be leaving his mother all alone, a thought he can't bear. The general, surprisingly patient, tells him there is no need to rush his refusal. In 3 days, the general's envoy will be returning to the northern border. If Li Xiang accepts the offer, he is to return alongside him at that time. The general assures him that no matter what he chooses, he will not be blamed for his decision. We see the energy levels peaking. The system asks if he is ready to proceed with the 3rd evolution. He is stunned to find that the energy required for this 3rd stage has somehow been fully met already. It makes one wonder just how powerful a boundless evolver is truly meant to become. The general explains that this energy is actually a condensed gift from his own spiritual avatar. It is meant to assist his evolution, and the general promises to wait 3 days for his final answer. Later, his peers tell him he's incredible, having heard the Divine General descended personally just for him. They can hardly believe he was invited to the Northern Army and hasn't even said yes yet. Well, as the saying goes, some people are simply built differently than the rest of us. He admits it's hard to refuse, but he can't stop thinking about what would happen to his mother if he left. She only has him, and he cannot imagine leaving her to live every day in constant fear for his safety. His friends remind him that even if he leaves, they will still be there to look after her. They tell him that while his filial piety is admirable, he must think clearly about his own future. Deep down, he knows that only by attaining true strength can he truly protect those he loves. Putting those thoughts aside for now, we see him prepare for his 3rd evolution as a boundless evolver. It is the kind of power that would make anyone envious, to be perfectly honest. The system confirms that his energy is sufficient and asks if he is ready to begin the 3rd stage. Without a second thought, he gives his consent to proceed. But something is different this time. The atmosphere feels strangely cold and eerie, unlike his previous evolutions. He feels as though he has stepped directly into the underworld itself. He can't help but wonder what on earth is happening as the shadows begin to shift. Before him appear the legendary figures of the afterlife, the Soul Reapers, and the Guardians of the Dead. This particular evolution path seems to be drawing from the power of the underworld deities. He realizes he must now choose one of these formidable entities to merge with his own power. The system presents a choice. Will he select the Son of Heaven of the Underworld as his evolution target? He chooses yes, ready to embrace whatever this dark power might bring. The evolution is a success, and we see that he has already unlocked the legendary guards, Black and White Wuchang. These spirits represent the very balance of life and death, standing ready at his side. The spirits bow low, greeting him as their new master, and he calmly tells them to rise. With the Black and White Wuchang flanking him, his presence is now radiating a terrifying brilliance. To have 3 such powerful entities at his command is a staggering display of strength. With this kind of power, he is certain he can finally claim a place of honor within the Northern Army, a place where he will no longer be just another face in the crowd. We see him walking with his mother, who asks if they hadn't just visited his father's grave a month ago. He wonders, quite naturally, why she has brought him back to this place so soon. She explains that his father has been appearing in her dreams lately, which is always a heavy sign. In those dreams, he seemed to be asking her to come and visit him one more time. She confesses that back when he first joined the army, she was terrified that his departure would be final. She feared that a simple goodbye would turn into an eternal farewell. But he always insisted that the world needed people to stand up and protect it. Eventually, the tragedy she feared most actually came to pass. This is why she never wanted her son to join the military. Deep down, she was simply afraid. She was scared that if they both left, she would be the only one remaining. And yet, she tells him that she has never once blamed his father for his choice. She understands that it is precisely because of men like him that others can live in peace. It is their sacrifice that allows the rest of us to live our lives in safety and stability. To her, and to the world, such a man is a true hero. He is, above all else, the pride of his entire family. She looks at her son and asks if he has already realized what she is trying to say. She admits that while she worries for him constantly, she doesn't want to hold him back. She refuses to be a burden or a weight on his shoulders as he finds his own path. She recalls how, whenever his father went off to war, she had a specific ritual. She would always tell him the same thing, that she would be right there at home, waiting for his return. But now, she tells him, there is something else she must say. She gives him her blessing to go, urging her son to follow his own path. She promises that both she and his father will always be right there at home, waiting for him. Meanwhile, word reaches the divine general from Yangzhou that Li Xiang has agreed. The only question now is when he departs. General Qingxiu will be the one to escort him, with their journey beginning the very next day. They expect to arrive at the northern border camp in about 3 days' time. The divine general sends word to Qingxiu. Li Xiang is to be given command of the Tanling squad. It is a bold move, considering the Tanling battalion is the sharpest blade of the Northern Army. Though he showed great talent in Yangzhou, he is, after all, still just a young man. Huijun wonders how such a boy could possibly earn the respect of seasoned soldiers. The general asks if Huijun believes he is placing far too much importance on young Li Xiang. The Northern Army has guarded the border for a century, and they have seen every kind of genius imaginable. Brilliant warriors are as common as the wind here, making it hard to see why this boy deserves such special treatment. The general smiles, noting that Huijun is so focused on the favoritism that he has missed the underlying reason. He challenges him to think deeper, asking what kind of figures the boy has summoned during his ancestral awakening. He reminds him of the 2 specific spirits Li Xiang has already manifested. Huijun recalls the names Zhang Sanfeng and Fa Hai, though he fails to see the problem with them. The general explains that while Zhang Sanfeng belongs to the era of martial arts, he somehow managed to cross the threshold into true immortality. Meanwhile, Fa Hai carries a divine lineage. With powers like the Buddha's rage and the underworld prison, the boy's potential is truly staggering. While these spirits aren't strictly classified as belonging to the era of the end of law, they already possess the terrifying power of the era of immortals and gods. We see that even at the first rank, he could rival those of the second rank. At the second rank, he fought with the strength of the third, following that logic. The general asks if Huijun has considered what might happen if the boy reaches the 5th rank. Huijun wonders if he could truly exert the power of the 6th rank, but who can say for sure? Perhaps he can, or perhaps he cannot. Only time will tell. If he truly manages to reach that stage, the general admits he is quite curious. To be honest, he is looking forward to seeing it for himself. He wonders what the world looks like from the height of the 6th rank. We return to Li Xiang, whose mother tells him he has grown up and must protect himself in Beijing. She tells him to come back and visit whenever he feels homesick. She promises to wait for him, and with a final goodbye, Li Xiang sets off. He is stunned by the scene before him, wondering what is happening, as if it weren't obvious. The citizens, knowing he is leaving, have all come out of their homes to see him off. His friend jokes that this treatment is even grander than what the city lord receives. After 18 years in this place, the moment of departure has finally arrived. Deep down, he feels a pang of reluctance as the people call out for him to take care. They wish him a safe journey, their voices following him as he moves toward the gate. A friend remarks with a rough grin that the kid is actually going to the northern border. His friend shouts for him not to die in that godforsaken place, promising to wait for his return to Yang City. He wants the chance to show his gratitude properly, and tells Li Xiang not to worry about a thing. Li Xiang replies that he'll be waiting for the challenge, though he knows the northern border is a bitter, cold land. Since the climate is so different from Yang City, his friend offers him a precious treasure for self-defense. He hands it over, insisting he take it, but there is more to be said. He jokes about Li Xiang taking him along to the northern border as he passes over the gift. Furthermore, we learn that the Northern Army is filled with internal factions and rivalries. It is far more complex than Yang City, and he warns the boy to keep his wits about him at all times. He wishes him the best of luck on this long journey to the north. After all, Yang City will always be his home, no matter how far he wanders. Yi Chen steps forward, declaring that he owes him a life and that he never leaves a debt unpaid. He tells Li Xiang to speak up if he ever needs anything at all, a bold promise, to be sure. He promises to buy the drinks the next time they meet and tells him to take care. With a final farewell to everyone, Li Xiang confirms that everything is ready for the departure. The Northern Army awaits, and he is finally ready to face it. We find ourselves in the northern border, where the Northern Army is commanded by 8 great generals. The divine General Di Shirtian leads the entire force, and beneath the 8 great generals, there are 24 commanders, each responsible for leading a specific unit. These are independent special operations teams, and starting from today, Li Xiang is told that he will be one of those 24 commanders. Starting as a commander right away doesn't seem quite right, does it? He asks if Li Xiang is already feeling afraid. He reminds him that his second sister dared to hunt a 3rd-level ferocious beast all on her own. This isn't like his usual style at all, though Li Xiang admits that fear isn't exactly the issue here. The problem, as he sees it, is that he's worried about the inevitable jealousy of the others. His companion finds this amusing, noting that it's perfectly normal for people to envy a genius. If he can't conquer them, he won't be able to hold the position anyway, so they decide it's time to move out. It is time, at last, for Li Xiang to go and see his new military camp. The soldiers salute General Qingxiu, who tells them there is no need for such formalities today. He has come to announce that, by order of the divine general, Li Xiang will serve as the new leader. From this day forward, he is the commander of the Tanlang Special Operations Team. The soldiers are stunned, wondering if the general is playing some kind of joke on them. They look at this clean-cut, pale young man and can't believe he's supposed to be their boss. One mocks him, asking if he's even finished weaning yet, and warns him that the wind here is quite strong. He jokes that Li Xiang might just get blown away if he isn't careful. The general notes that the army only obeys the capable. The position is his, but he must earn the respect. Whether he can keep the seat is entirely up to him. So Li Xiang steps forward and introduces himself. He acknowledges that it's natural for them to doubt a newcomer, as he understands the rules of the reserve army. It is a world where the weak perish and the strong are revered, a simple, if brutal, philosophy. The position of commander isn't won with smooth talk, it is earned with one's fists. A massive soldier named Manhwa grunts that the kid at least seems to know the rules. Manhwa challenges him to show what he's capable of, warning him that he won't be holding back. He claims his strikes are unpredictable, and if he accidentally kills the boy, he shouldn't hold a grudge. Li Xiang looks at him and calmly remarks that just one opponent isn't enough, especially since time is limited. And then, he makes a bold suggestion. He wants all of them to attack him at once. The soldiers are furious at the perceived insult, deciding that if the kid wants to die, they'll gladly help him. Since the new commander is so confident, they agree it's only fair to give him exactly what he asked for. They charge forward with a shout, ready to show Li Xiang the reality of the battlefield. We see that these men are all 3rd-level experts who have crawled through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Even a seasoned warrior might think twice before facing such a collective force head-on. But Li Xiang isn't worried. He knows that if he doesn't beat them into submission, he'll never truly lead them. Suddenly, a chilling declaration echoes through the air. Those who offend the Son of Heaven shall die. The warning is repeated, carrying a weight that seems to freeze the very air around the combatants. It seems our young commander has his own protectors, bound by a vow as strong as diamond. General Qingxiu is baffled. He knew about the ancestral bloodline, but these spectral figures are something else entirely. The realization that an awakened can summon others is a game-changer, and a dangerous one at that. He decides this matter must be reported to the divine cult immediately, recognizing the sheer scale of Li Xiang's power. Urgency takes hold as he searches for the right authorities to handle this unprecedented discovery. He moves quickly through the camp, his mind racing with the implications of what he has just witnessed. Qingxiu identifies himself, insisting that he has urgent information that the divine cult needs to hear right now. Back at the field, the dust settles, and Li Xiang asks the fallen soldiers if they are finally ready to follow him. Manhwa, the deputy commander of the greedy wolf camp, bows low and officially greets his new leader. Following his lead, the rest of the soldiers shout in unison, finally acknowledging Li Xiang as their true commander. But the moment of victory is short-lived, as word arrives that the divine cult has requested an immediate audience. They specifically asked for Li Xiang, the commander of the 7th Army's Greedy Wolf Special Operations Team. As the representatives of the cult arrive, the soldiers quickly drop to their knees in a display of absolute reverence. The order is given to move out immediately, and the guards begin ushering everyone along without delay. There is no time for questions or hesitation. The group is hurried forward toward their destination. The pace is relentless as they are marched out of the camp. And so, we see Li Xiang being led away, heading toward a meeting that will likely change everything.